All right. So, greetings, scholars. I have this at time. Welcome. Glad to have everyone here. No major announcements. We're just going to kind of continue with the progression. We're working on Chapter 8 on personal finance. And so today I really just want to focus on Section 8.5. We probably will finish early. So more than likely, I'll try to pull up some homework questions and work from there. Let me check something. Go here. All right. All right. Okay. Let me start back. All right, so greetings, scholars. Again, we're continuing on Chapter 8 on personal finance. As far as announcements go, again, no major announcements. Just as long as you've made your way into the Teams call, and still here, and you're submitting your assignments via My Open Math. Those are the main things. I think with the assignments on My Open Math, you should have unlimited attempts. I know for at least the assignments for chapters 1 through 3, I removed the late penalty, so you can still earn up to 100% on those assignments. And then going forward, there's at most a 10% late penalty for things after that. All right. So if anything is late after that, then from like chapter 7 or chapter 8 or something like that, then there's at most 10% late penalty. See something. Testing. Let's turn it here. Confirm. And let's actually turn this off. That's better. Okay. Okay, cool. Okay, I think that looks good. Let me see. I can't think of anything else. So let's just kind of get into the material. As always, if you have questions, feel free to unmute yourself so we can talk about it. Also, I am monitoring the chat. Yeah. Okay. So section 8.5 is over annuities, methods of savings, and investments. A few objectives here. 1, determine the value of an annuity. 2, determine regular annuity payments needed to achieve a financial goal. 3, understand stocks and bonds as investments. 4, read stock tables. 5, understand accounts designed for retirement savings. Okay. So annuities. An annuity is a sequence of equal payments made at equal time periods. The value of an annuity is the sum of all the deposits plus all interest paid. Okay. So say we were to deposit $1,000 into a savings plan at the end of each year for 3 years. The interest rate is 8% per year compounded annually. Find the value of the annuity after 3 years and then find the interest. Let's see if we can do this. Okay. So like this. Compounded annually. So I'm thinking like compound interest formula, where the future amount is going to be the principal times 1 plus, usually it's r over n to the power of nt. But then if we fill in what we're given, so we're definitely starting with $1,000, right? The rate is 8%. We have to express it as a decimal, so that's 0.08. It says it's compounded annually, so our n, that means the interest is applied once every year, and we're doing this for 3 years. Okay. So that seems like everything. Okay. So then let's find I think we have to break it into stages because we're gonna make continual deposits at the end of each year. So let's find the amount at the end of the first year, right? So that means we're gonna deposit $1,000. 1 plus the rate is and n is 1, so 1 plus 0. I can write it. It's fine. 1 plus 0.08. N is 1. I guess for that power, you would say that time is 1 because it's only been 1 year. I think that's okay. So then that's what, 1.08 and move the decimal to the right by 3. 1, 2, 3, so 1080. Okay. So after the first year, there should be 1080 in the account. Think about it. You deposit into a savings plan at the end of each year. My time is a little bit off. Let me think about it. Because if you think about the end of the second year, it's going to be what, the 1080 plus another 1,000. Let me see. I'm going to use my prepared notes just in the interest of time. The value at the end of the first year is 1,000. Okay. So at the end of the first year, you just make a deposit of $1,000. I guess there hasn't been anything for interest to accrue. And then I think what we calculated was the end of year 2. So we're doing another deposit of 1,000, right? Let me see, 1 plus the rate that's been for a year plus an additional 1,000. So that gives the 2080, right? Okay, so it's a little bit weird. It's not like as cut and dry as like just plugging it into the form. You have to kind of like think about it a little bit. So if we if we think about the first year, nothing's been in an account, and at the end of that year, we just make a deposit of $1,000. Okay, and that's fine. Okay, and then at the end of the second year, now we've had $1,000 in the account already, so that's the first 1,000 that you see, and then you're applying the interest. Plus, we're going to do an additional $1,000 because it's the end of the year, all right? So at the end of the second year, we're going to say plus another $1,000. Okay. So then that's 2080. Okay, that's fine. So then at the end of so now if we consider the third year, now for the third year, the 2080 has been sitting in there. So we can use that as our new principal. That's going to be our 2080. 1 plus R over N, so 0.08. This is going to be for 1 year, 1 compounding. And then again, we're going to add another $1,000, basically just repeating what we did at the end of the second year. Let's see, I might need my calculator for that. Hey, Google, what's 2080 times 1.08 plus 1,000?
2080 times 1.08 plus 1,000 is 3,246.4.
I think that's what she said. Let's see. We go to the next slide. We got the 2080. 3246.40. 4640, yeah. Cancel. Okay. Oh, and then find the interest. I guess the interest at the end of the 3 years. Well, if you deposited $3,000 total, so it should be the 246.40 because we've made a deposit. We've made 3 deposits of $1,000, so we've earned $246.40. You made 3 payments of $1,000 each, depositing a total of $3,000. The value of the annuity is $3246.40. The interest is going to be the $246.40. Okay. All right, let's try another one. All right, so I mean, I feel like the takeaway from there, you know, the first year you have this account, and then at the end of the first year, we deposit $1,000, and then now for the second year, that $1,000 is sitting there for the entire second year, so that means it's earning interest for that entire year. So then, plus at the end of that year is an additional $1,000. That's how we got the 2080, and then now for the third year, that 2080 is earning interest, so that's why we plugged it into the compound interest formula, and then plus another $1,000 at the end of that. And that's how we generated that. Okay, that was interesting. Like now, normally the way we see it is, you know, we have an interest-bearing account, 8%. We have an initial deposit, and then we don't touch it for like X amount of years, right? But in this case, we're adding money to it at the end of each year, so that's why it was a little bit different than the way we've done it in the past. So if P is the deposit made at the end of each year for an annuity that pays an annual interest rate R in decimal form compounded once a year, the value A of the annuity after T years is given by this. Let me think about it. So I feel like if we could probably derive it. I don't want to derive it here right now, but like if we think about what we did in the previous example, we had our initial deposit, and then for like the second year, we applied interest on that deposit plus that same deposit again. So like if we were to write it out, we probably could derive this, but I'm not going to derive this right now, just in the interest of time, because I had to think about this one. I hadn't thought about it yet. Okay, so determine the value of an annuity. To save for retirement, you decide to deposit $1,000 into an IRA at the end of each year for the next 30 years. If you can count on an interest rate of 10% per year compounded annually, how much will you have from the IRA after 30 years, and then find the interest? Okay. So for the annuity, let me see. It looked like we had P times 1 plus, was it R over N? I think it was like R to the T minus 1 all over R, something like that. I'm going to just look it up. P times 1 plus R. Okay. So we need to do like this. I think that's the only thing we're missing. So see, that first part is the interest earned on. Only thing is that minus 1 is it like throwing me off a little bit. And I had to think about the R, but I think if we were to write it out, we could derive this. But again, just for the sake of time, I'm not going to do this right now. Oh, it's 11:11. Let me see if I can screenshot. Ooh, that works. Send it here. Okay. All right, let's keep going. 1 plus R. And see, and usually it's 1 plus R over N to the power of NT, but if it's compounded annually, if it's compounded once per year, so the N is 1, so that kind of falls out. I feel like that should, only thing is like, I feel like that should be a plus 1. Okay, so let's see what we're given. To save for retirement, we deposit $1,000 into an IRA at the end of each year for the next 30 years. If you can count on an interest rate of 10% compounded annually. Oh. It might be minus 1 because the first year you're not earning any interest, so they remove like one of those iterations or whatever. I think that's where the minus 1 comes from, but I got to think about it. How much will you have from the IRA after 30 years? Okay, let's see if this works, right? So for part A, we're saying that the value of the annuity is going to be, where P should be the amount we deposit each year at the end of each year. Parentheses, the rate as a decimal, if it's 10%, so that's going to be 0.1. We're going for 30 years, okay? I'm going to say minus 1, and then all divided by the 10%. Okay, let's crunch this number and see what happens. Let me, not that. Okay, that's a little better now. Stop. Let's try this again. Okay, it was almost there. This one. Thank you. All right, so reload and refresh. Okay, so let's see if this works. So then we're going to say the 1,000. We're going to say 1 plus 0.1. Then that we need another set of open parentheses. Okay. And then we want to say that to the power of 30. Then we're going to say minus 1, close off the numerator. Then we're going to say divided by 0.1. Okay. 30 years, so about 30, somewhere like 30 or 40,000, if not more. Somewhere there. Oh, man. Okay, that could be the case. 164,494 and 2 cents. Let's see. So we got that this was approximately See, it's just like, I guess it kind of trips me out because I'm like, you go your whole life building on this, and then it's like you're lucky. Like, I feel like something like this. I mean, I guess you could at some point take it out, but I feel like if I were to do something like this, I wouldn't do it for myself. I would do it for loved ones, right? For like if I had children or something like that. Because it's just like by the time, if it's 30 years later, am I going to be able to enjoy it? I mean, I guess if I needed it or something, I don't know. You do whatever you want with it if it's yours. It's just interesting. And like it, I'm more of the type to, I'm alive now and I'm young, so let me just try to enjoy it. But I get the whole thing of making a plan for the future, right? I always struggle with like, well, when can I enjoy this in my lifetime, you know? But I am getting to that stage where I do want to like try to leave something for others, because I feel like I'm okay. Like I don't really need anything. So then I was like, well, let me just try to leave something for somebody else, help somebody else other than myself. I'm just at that stage in my life. Not that I got anything, or it would just be nice to be able to do that. 494 and 2 cents. Okay. So that's what we got. Let's kind of go with it for now. And then the interest. So if we've paid 30,000, I mean that's a good amount of interest. Yeah, but remember we had a high interest rate, right? Remember 10% a rate of 10%, like that's actually really that's unheard of. At least from my experiences. So then I would subtract 30,000 from that to give us 134. That's the interest earned, 134,000. It's actually really good. Okay. So the interest earned, I just subtracted 30,000. Right? That's a good amount of money. 134,494. Hopefully we did this proper in 2 cents. Wow. Let me highlight this and highlight this. And let's compare this with our prepared notes. 164.94, 164.94. That's fine. After 30 years, you have approximately this from the IRA. Okay, 134,000. The interest is nearly 4.5 times the amount of your payments. Wow, that's actually really good. And one way that one of my elders would articulate this, they'll say things like, that time is going to come and go anyway. So it's like, why not do something so you can position yourself to be in a better place when that time comes to pass. Like, because if I don't take action or if I don't move on an account like that now, that time is going to come and pass anyway, and then I'm still going to be in the same position. Versus if I have access to an account like this and be committed, then again, that time is still going to come and pass. And now, instead of one reality where I don't have this earned interest of 134,000, and another reality with a little bit of planning and diligence, now we're up by 134,000, right? So the moral there was like, again, that time is going to come and pass anyway, so why not position yourself so that you can reap some kind of benefits at the end of it? Because either way it goes, it's going to come to pass. Okay, I just thought it was interesting. So this is pretty much what I was trying to do. Where we apply multiple compoundings per year. In the previous example, the compoundings were once per year, right? And usually we see it as R over N to the power of NT. Okay. So if P is a deposit made at the end of each compounding period for an annuity that pays an annual interest rate R in decimal, compounded N times per year, the value A of the annuity after T years is given by this. Okay. So again, this is the same formula that we had on the previous slide, but this factors in multiple compoundings per year. Okay. All right. Let's see. So at age 25, to save for retirement, you decide to deposit $200 into an IRA at the end of each month. So again, P is a deposit made at the end of each compounding period, not necessarily at the end of each year. Okay. So $200 into an IRA at the end of each month at an interest rate of 7.5% per year, compounded monthly, How much will you have from the IRA when you retire at 65 and then find the interest? Okay. All right. So the future value, let me see, P times 1 plus R over N to the power of NT minus 1 all over R over N. I think that's what we had on the previous slide. Okay. Now the different components, $200 at the end of each month. So our P is $200. The rate is 7.5%. So our R is going to be 0.075. Compounded monthly, so our N is 12. Hmm. 65, so what's that, 40 years? So the time is 40 years. I think those are all the parts. So then for part A, the future amount is going to be $200, parentheses, 1 plus the rate, 0.075 over N, which is 12. 12 times 40. Okay. Minus 1 all over 0.075 over 12. So we're just going to use the calculator. Okay. Let me see. I think I'm going to try to isolate my numerator and my denominator. So we got $200, then double open. 1 plus 0.075 divided by 12. Close that off. And then that to the power of 12 times 40. Okay. So 480, but that's fine. Then we need to say what? Minus 1. Close off that. And then I'm closing off the numerator. Okay, I think I got, hopefully I did my parentheses properly. If I didn't, then it's gonna throw everything off. Then divided by 0.075 divided by 12. Okay, close parentheses. So let me see. I think one way that I kind of check to make sure my parentheses are correct, right? So every time I open parentheses, I'm gonna raise a finger, and then every time I close the parentheses, I'm gonna lower a finger, and by the end, all my fingers should be lowered, right? So like for instance, I see an open, open, open. So I got 3 fingers up. I see a close, so then I lower one, and then open, close, double close, open, close, right? So now by the end of this, all my fingers are lowered. So, more than likely I did my parentheses, my groupings properly. At least I have the correct number of parentheses, right? And then it becomes a matter of them being positioned properly, but I'm not going to worry about that. Okay. So after the 40 years, wow, what's this rate? 7.5? That's a decent rate, but that's $200 a month, every month for 40 years. I mean, that's doable. And then what is that? A little over $500,000 for 40 years. Again, I feel like if I was doing something like that, I don't really feel like I would do it for myself. I would do it for, like, that's because I don't know that I could appreciate it, at that age. It's just something I would just be looking for somebody else. That's how I feel about it. If I had access to something like this, 604, 764, and then you got to protect it, and this and the other, 0.43. Okay, that's fine. Okay. And then interest. So we did $200 a month for 12 months times 40 years, right? Hey Google, what's 200 times 12 times 40?
Times 12 times 40 is 96,000.
Hey Google, what's 604,764.43 minus 96,000?
$604,764.43
508.
minus 96,000 is $508,764.43.
508. 764.43. All right. Again, we got that number. Let's make sure these are correct. Because essentially what I was doing was just plugging it into the formula, the different components. 604, 764, 604. Yep, that's about what we got. And then 508,000. More than 5 times the amount of your contributions. Man, that's pretty good though. Like, I was like, wait a minute, maybe I need to go look and see if I can find me an IRA. I feel like $200 a month is doable. And if I did that for 40 years, I mean, this is about that time. I wish I had done it sooner, but I mean, so basically what I kind of envision for myself is like, okay, I have loved ones that have been building for their lives. One of them did not get the chance to, he left here before he could like enjoy it. So, but I do have loved ones that are like looking out for me like that. So then I was like, okay, well, maybe I can like afford it. Because again, I feel like if I were to do something like this myself, the chances of me enjoying it are low, right? Because there's 40 years down the line, I'm going to be thinking about trying to leave this place, not trying to, but leaving this place and making a plan there. And, if I'm lucky, I'll still have my functionality. So then this would be something that if I had access to this, if I knew how to find it or connect, that would be something I would leave for others. And I mean, that $200 a month is not difficult. It's not really that difficult to do. Not at this stage. But then the challenge would be committed, $200 a month for 40 years, right? That's the challenge. But that's feasible. That's really interesting. Like, I don't know about you guys, but it makes me excited, right? And you start thinking like, okay, well, how feasible is this? How could I create this for myself? How could I create it for myself and enjoy it? Or, if I'm trying to build a family and I'm thinking like how many children I'm going to have or whatever, then when do I want them to access it? What do I want them to use it for? How do I protect it so they don't just blow it? You see what I'm saying? It's like you start asking yourself, you start thinking in terms of like generation. You start to go beyond, thinking for the day to day or the month or the year to year. You start thinking, okay, how can I protect as many generations as I can with this maneuver? Like, it started thinking like conquering time. One of the YouTubers I follow, I was about to say one of the YouTubers I follow on YouTube. One of the content creators I follow on YouTube, he planted that seed of that concept into my mind. He was like, the ancients, they used to try to figure out how to conquer time. A lot of the systems that are in play right now, as far as the governments and feds and stuff like this, and different systems that are at play, that's where somebody in the past developed a system, and they're long gone from this place, but we're still using their system. So it's like we can do the same thing. We can start to think in terms of conquering eras of time, 30 years at a time, or generations or whatever. How many generations can you protect with this maneuver? Right. And then it's like, if we start thinking this way, we teach the next generation to think like that, then idealistically, they can go further, or they can make a plan that goes beyond. Right. Like with the compound interest, again, like I think a couple of sessions ago, we talked about the infinite scholarship, right? Where $1 million at 5% interest with the lowest form of interest, that's $50,000 a year, which equates to about $4,000 a month, right? Just for that account existing. So, like, you don't have to punch a clock. You don't have to show up and be micromanaged. You don't have to, engage anybody. It's just having that account set up like that. And you never know when you might come across that or have access to that. You can get into real estate. You can become a lawyer or a doctor. You can win the lottery, right? A lot of times when people win the lottery, they don't even have a plan like this. So within a couple of years, even if they're millionaires, they've lost it all because they haven't made a plan to protect it and like being diligent, because it's a whole different realm, right? So it's like at some point we got to start thinking like this and start making a plan and taking some action, right? At some point. I just think it's really interesting. It brings mathematics to life. And like, I don't know anybody that doesn't like money. And then people will argue and be like, oh, well, I don't really like money. It's just like a necessary evil. I was like, well, if you don't like it, you can give it to me. But they were like, well, I need it. Well, then to me, that's another form of liking it, right? If you really didn't like it, you can make a plan around it, right? But that's neither,
Period.
you know, but that's neither here nor there. But it's just interesting. It's just interesting. And then like I had colleagues that basically went into sports. They, and they were able to donate $1 million. Like, but again, if they were savvy, I mean, and I don't want to like try to diminish them because I've never had like that amount of money to manage. But, you know, instead of donating $1 million, set up the infinite scholarship. So then now you can, if that's $4,000 a month, you could either give 12 students three or $3,000 a month, or sorry, you can give 12 students scholarships of $3,000, or you can divvy it up however you want, right? But instead of just donating $1 million, I'm pretty sure that $1 million has been like long been spent. I think they did some renovations to the high school or whatever, but just these being aware of these dynamics, I think is powerful. Because once you're aware, your consciousness expands. You never know when you might be in a position to actually invoke it. I've had clients as an Uber driver. I've had clients that get in my car and they were like, "Yeah, I have friends that they don't work. They just live off the interest from their interest-bearing accounts, from their compound interest accounts." But again, you had the encouragement. The recommendation, you still got to get like a financial advisor and all this other kind of stuff. But at some point, you never know when you might have access to this. And so, the challenge I've given myself is at least to try to spread awareness of these concepts of compound interest and, things of this nature. I think we got all these numbers correct. So, but yeah, that's really powerful. And like that 40 years has come and passed in my life. And, I had to figure this stuff out. Like I think my parents may have been aware of it, maybe not. Let me think about this. Oh, okay. So this one, yeah, there's more I want to kind of talk about on that, but I'm gonna kind of get back on task. So planning for the future with an annuity. So what this is, we're taking our annuity formula that we had on the previous slide. Like now I want to derive this. Like that's another reason I keep pausing, because I keep thinking like, okay, well, if they're using compound interest and we're applying an annuity each at the end of each compounding period, I'm still trying to account for that -1. I think if I actually attempt to derive it, I think I can get it, but I just don't want to do it now because I don't want to eat up our time, because it's precious. And I do appreciate you guys. Like, you guys show up, you make an effort to be here, and you let me get the thoughts out, right? That actually makes a big difference. It's minimal to no disruptions. That's actually huge. Like that helps me to like focus and like keep with the flow and kind of be respectful of everybody's time, right? So I do appreciate you all for that. And I notice, and so basically the way it kind of carries over, it allows me, it helps me to be kind of more gentle and patient and be like, okay, well, let me remove the late penalty for these first 3 chapters, right? Stuff like that, or unlimited attempts at the assignments, or just get the assignment submitted, or okay, or have you connected with the tutors, or are you guys working together? Like, I feel like with this setup, the only reason somebody would be left behind is that they just don't speak up. You got it. It's like, as long as you ask for the help between me, your classmates, the tutors, there's something there. There's somebody there that can help. Like, I feel like it, especially with it being unlimited attempts and minimal to no late penalty. It's just encouraging everybody to, like, if you need help, just ask for it and then just get it submitted, and I think you'll be fine. Okay. So what this formula is talking about, we're taking our annuity formula that we had on the previous couple of slides or whatever. That one was telling us the future value based on some initial conditions and, making deposits at the end of each compounding period. Well, this one is like, okay, say we know the future value that we want to have. Like, say we're planning for a children's college fund, and so we know it's like 20 years out, whatever. And then so we need to say, okay, how much money do we need to put away each month so that in 20 years we'll have $100,000 on this account? You see what I'm saying? That's what this is. This is going to tell us how much we need to put away at the end of each compounding period so that we can generate a future amount by a certain time, right? So the deposit P that must be made at the end of each compounding period into an annuity that pays an annual interest rate R in decimal form, compounded n times per year in order to achieve a value of $8 after 2 years is given by this. Again, all this is, it's the same formula as before. We just used some algebra to kind of shift stuff around. Like if we go back to here and we wanted to solve for P, first we would multiply both sides by the denominator, or you can multiply by the reciprocal. Let me think about it. How did they write it? Yeah, so they just R over N. Yeah, so they multiply both sides by R over N and then divided both sides. So you have P times this number. So if we want to solve for P, we divide both sides by that number, right? All of that 1 plus R over N to the power of NT minus 1, that's just a number, right? So if we're solving for P, divide both sides by that number, and that's where this other formula comes from. Okay, but you can essentially use the previous one, plug in your components, and then solve for P. Suppose that once you complete your college education and begin working, you would like to save $20,000 over 5 years to use as a down payment for a home. Okay, that's reasonable. You anticipate making regular end-of-month deposits in an annuity end of the month. Okay, that pays 6% compounded monthly. Okay. How much should you deposit each month? And then how much of the $20,000 down payment comes from deposits and how much comes from interest? How much of the $20,000 down payment comes from deposits and how much comes from interest? Oh, okay. That's the final amount. Okay, that's fine. Yeah. Okay. I could use the formula. I guess that would be the simple thing. I think I'd just rather use the one that we've been using because it's the same formula, right? So, for instance, for an annuity, the future amount is going to be, let's see, was it like this? P like this. 1 plus R over N to the power of NT. That's a T. It's a beautiful T. T minus 1, right? That looks good. And then all over R over N. That looks like NN. R over N. Okay. So I think we're given everything except P. I probably should give myself some space, but I think we can manage this, right? So then if I solve for P from there, so for part A, the amount that we're going to deposit at the end of each month is going to be given by, now our denominator is going to be 1 plus, now let me see, our rate, 6%. So that's going to be 0.06 divided by 12, because it's every month, to the power of 12 times 5, because I think we said 5 years, minus 1. This is our denominator. The numerator, we want a future amount of 20,000. Okay. Times this R over N. The rate is 6%, and the compoundings are 12 compoundings per year. Okay. So then we can break out our trusty dusty rusty, this guy. The numerator is 20,000, 1, 2, 3. That looks proper. Times 0.06 divided by 12. That's the numerator. Divided by, double open for the denominator, 1 plus 0.06 divided by 12, then that quantity to the power of 60, basically. I'll just do 60. We're going to say minus 1, close parentheses. I think the parentheses are good. So how much do we need to deposit at the end of each month for the next 5 years? So that's what, 60 payments? That's reasonable. $20,000? Wait a minute. Okay, so if I had an interest-bearing account that has 6% and I put away $300 a month for the next 5 years, I'll have the down payment for a house ready to go. Because then now my mind starts swimming. Now it starts like racing because it's like, okay, then I get my house, and then I'm thinking about tenants. So like I'm trying to rent out spaces and like turn it into an asset so it can generate money. Like that's just where my mind automatically goes. I mean, it's not without its challenges. You gotta still kind of deal with people, which can be a challenge. And so then you would have insurance and some other things in place. But yeah, that's interesting. So this says $286.66 at least, or approximately. Right? So if you can do $300, and honestly, I've been doing that. Like that's the thing that's so trippy about it. When I think about like car notes and just stuff that I've been buying over these years, I have been doing this. All I have to do is put it into an account, and I could be paying myself. Like I get like bit out of shape. I'm like, I could have, because I've been doing this the whole while. Like it's just a matter of shifting the setup instead of you know. Like I definitely will buy games. Like I just do a lot of entertainment stuff, like gaming stuff. But instead of buying the games, just do this, and then you'll have this lump sum. I've been doing it for my car note, right? When I think about the car note, I really like. I can't wait till we get to that one because when I first got this car, I was naive, but I was impatient. I was like, I got tired of like trying to do everything by the book and all these things that my elders were suggesting. I was frustrated. I was like, man, I'm sick of this. Like, when can I like enjoy myself? So I just was like, you know what? I'm gonna just get a car that I like. It's gonna be a little expensive, but I was like, I don't care. But now on the backside, now I'm dealing with like car insurance is crazy for like no reason. I'm a great driver, like no trouble, but they just keep finding random excuses to like hike up the car insurance. And then like when I first started making payments on my car note, I was like, after about a year or so, I was like, I've paid a good amount and that principal has not come down. But again, I'm trying to hold out. I'm trying to hold out until we get to the thing on car notes because it actually explained what I was experiencing. I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. And it's like my mom tried to warn me, but again, I was hard headed because like she's a bank examiner and she was like, well, why didn't you just take us with it? I was like, because y'all were gonna try to they were gonna try to get me to be practical to get something like I didn't really want, and I probably would have been much better off, but I felt like this whole thing with the car was something I needed to experience to kind of like slow down and like learn how to like listen to your elders to save yourself the headache, right? It was just I had to grow up, you had to and I had to bite the bullet and just commit to it or sell the car or something, find some way to like follow through on what I said I was going to do, and then just learn like, okay, if you have trusted support, it's probably a good idea to like collaborate a little bit just to see, you know, it's always good to have input and then make a decision from there because a lot of times your elders and certain people in your life, they can see your blind spots and they can see things that you can't see and they're aware of things that you're not aware of. And so if you kind of listen to them a little bit and like merge it with whatever you were already thinking, then you can like you have a much greater chance of success than if you just go in blinded and like bridges burnt and stuff like that. Then now you kind of setting yourself up for failure, right? Um, I mean that's what my experience was. I just was impatient and young and naive, and then I was like, okay, I can see it now. How much should you deposit? So we got that, and then how much of the 20,000 down payment comes from the deposits, and how much comes from interest, right? So if we're making that a payment, if we're making that payment every month for 5 years, so that's 60. It's basically that number times 12 times 5, and then that's how much is going to come from deposits, and then the difference is going to be the amount that comes from interest. Let me see. So let's take that number. I'm just gonna say times 60. Wow. So, oh man, most of that comes from deposits. Yeah, we're getting like 17,000, almost 17,200. So for part B, I'll just label it as the amount from the deposits is going to be approximately. What are we getting here? We got 17,000. That's a lot. 199 and 36 cents. And then the amount from interest is approximately. So we're going to say, oh, that's not a lot. 20,000, 1, 2, 3, minus Yeah, I'm not feeling this one. But the others were much longer. Like we're talking 40 years. This is only 5 years. That's. I mean, and to be honest, like now where I am, I was like, well, can I find a car that's like maybe 10 or 15,000 that I like that's reliable, and then like I do something with the difference, or you know. I mean, I don't know. This is interesting. I just started playing with stuff, so we're gonna say minus that answer. Okay. So about almost $3,000 from interest, which is not as much as I would have liked, but that's okay. That's still pretty good. 2,800. What was that 64? Okay, so we got these results. I'm kind of out of space to highlight, but that's okay. Okay, so we got 17,199.36. Okay, wait. Each month, 287. Yeah, we got the 287. So our numbers are going to be a little bit different. 17 to 20, that's fine. It's just because we didn't round. We kept ours exact. That's why it's a little off. When you base your calculations on rounded results, then it does kind of skew it a bit. So that's why it's a little bit different. But it's close enough. So the total deposits, yeah. So if we did 287, 17 to 20, and then the interest is there, right? That's okay. Okay, this is interesting. And like, I mean, I made it all the way through grad school. Nobody ever sat down and went through this kind of stuff with me. Like, I wish somebody had, especially as a mathematician. I'm like, yo. But I guess they felt like we could figure it out ourselves. But it would have been nice for somebody to at least sit down. Because like, I felt like even if I didn't know how to crunch these numbers, if I at least was aware that this is what's going on in the background, then I felt like that would have influenced things a little bit different. You don't really have to know all the nuances as long you need to have some level of awareness, and then from there you can kind of plan accordingly. Some investments. When depositing money into a bank account, hopefully we're all aboard and we're not all bored. Again, if you have questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to unmute yourself. We could talk about it. Otherwise, I'm just going to kind of power through. Let me see. Testing. Confirm. Testing. Uh-oh. Okay. Whew. Yeah, I was like, I don't think you guys will let me go that long without the audio working. So investments. When depositing money into a bank account, you are making a cash investment. The account's interest rate guarantees a certain percent increase on your investment called its return. Other kinds of investment that are riskier are called stocks and bonds. Okay. I'm only bringing this up because I feel like it's relevant to what we're talking about. Let me see if I can find this clip. Let's send it to myself. Okay. I kind of want to pull this up. How do I guess I'll put it in the chat for now. You can watch it at your leisure. That I think that'll be appropriate. But it's just an interesting. Let me see if where is it? The chat. Let me paste. Yeah. I want to share in the meeting. Start sharing. Please don't throw stuff off. Okay, maybe not. Maybe I didn't want to do that. Okay, that's fine. Let me just bring it back. Because I didn't really want to pull that up. Share the screen. That would be nice. I'll keep that in mind later. But it's basically talking about these guys not in here. She was like, it's entitled "Don't Ever Let Your Parents Just Share." Hang on. So it's kind of entitled "Don't Let Your Parents Just Give You a House," and she's like some kind of lawyer. Where she talked about this maneuver where it could be put into some kind of like trust or something and then donated, because if the parent just gives the house to the child, when the child goes to sell the house later, they're gonna have to pay like taxes and all this like interest earned from the appreciation of the house. Like they bought the house for like 100,000, now it's worth 700,000. Versus with the maneuver that she suggests, like putting it as like a trust or something, and then that way she doesn't have to pay the taxes on the money earned. Like she was going to be paying taxes on $700,000, right, when she goes to sell it. But with the maneuver, I was like, oh, that's live, right? Like, and it's basically being aware of stuff like that. Just a bunch of little like tax law and like real estate, maneuvers and things. It's all of this is about awareness, and you like that's where lawyers and people that sit down and research and study and like, okay, how can we protect our money? Like there are maneuvers where if you do it one way, you're going to pay a bunch of taxes in the future on it, like as far as like retirement funds. But then there are other accounts where it's like tax deferred or something, so you're not paying as much taxes on it. It's certain maneuvers. I think we're gonna get into some of that. But I did put this video. I thought it was relevant to what we're talking about and it's interesting. Just check it out. I'm doing shameless marketing for her channel. But I intend to get into stuff like that and kind of become more savvy on those kind of maneuvers. But it was just interesting. So it's in the chat and I'll leave it there for now. Okay, so stocks and bonds. Let's keep going. Oh, how do I bring that back? So if I go like this, seamless, and then switch it back. Single page. Okay. All right. So investors purchase stock, shares of ownership in a company. For example, if a company has a total of 1 million shares and an investment owns 20,000 of these shares, that investor owns 2% of the company. 20,000 divided by 1 million, 2%. Any investor who owns some percentage of the company is called a shareholder, right? So now I'm thinking of that movie, Dumb Money. I was almost a part of all of that stuff. Like at that time, I was like researching stocks and bonds and trading and like, being a trader or whatever. And I was also heavy on Reddit. And then like one day they were like, yo, I just made $17 million last night. I was like, what? And so I had literally just missed it. Like everybody was like, I guess they had found out that this hedge fund owner, this hedge funder or whatever it's called, I don't know the proper terminology, but they were betting on GameStop to fail. If GameStop had failed, they were going to make a crap ton of money, right? And so, the people were like just kind of irritated. It was like because the traders and the brokers and all that, they clearly were like cheating, right? Like every time an individual would make a maneuver, they would like kind of shift everything so that it goes against that player, and like the average person generally fails. And so then these hedge fund owners, they make a lot of money from these different maneuvers, but it's like they make it so confusing and so difficult that where the average person, the chances of them winning are like practically zero. So then I guess this guy got on like Reddit and he just galvanized like a whole bunch of people. They were like, this hedge fund Bass, whatever, is like he's banking on GameStop to fail, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna put my thousands of dollars into GameStop to just stick it to him. And if you want to stick it to him, you will do the same thing with me. And so he got like almost like the whole internet. That's what it felt like to like join him. And so he artificially influenced the stock, but just by like galvanizing people against the hedge fund. I can't think of the proper terminology. Right, the hedge fund owner or whatever. And so it actually worked. Like he made this investment, and because enough people like backed him, these guys became millionaires like overnight. And so there's actually a movie out about it right now called Dumb Money. But I was there witnessing all of that. But I didn't catch wind of it until literally the next day. I was heavy in stocks, and I was kind of researching on Reddit. And then I had just missed it. I was like, how did I not have money in GameStop of all places? Like GameStop used to be my thing. But I haven't done GameStop in forever. So anywho. But yeah, that was a wild time. And then I kept thinking, I'm like, okay, if y'all could do it once, why not just do it again? But then people were saying like, oh, it'll ruin the economy. I'm like, things are already ruined. Let's create some chaos. Like just do it anyway. But that's just how I feel. That's just, I'm just one person, right? So let's see. So buying or selling stocks is referred to as trading. Stocks are traded on a stock exchange. There are two ways to make money by investing in a stock. You sell shares for more money than you paid for them, in which case you have a capital gain on the sale of the stock. While you own the stock, the company distributes all or part of its profits to shareholders as dividends. All right. So you buy low, sell high, right? Or dividends is another technique that people use to generate money. Like, some of these like established companies, they pay you money just for holding stocks with them through each a certain amount of period, like either quarter or monthly or yearly. But they just paying you money. And basically what it is, the company takes their surplus of funds, revenue or whatever, and they divvy it up and spread it out to their shareholders. So if you had 2% of the company, whatever extra money the company earns for that pay period, they would give you 2% of that. All right. But that can be, it sounds like a little, but it can get up there. It's really interesting. Something to research. We have a solid 20 minutes and we got like 10 slides. All right. So let's kind of try to wrap this up. I thought we were going to finish early, but it just kept launching me into like all these different stories. I don't know if they're good stories. They were just stories. All right. So bonds. In order to raise money and dilute the ownership of current stockholders, companies sell bonds. So people who buy a bond are lending money to the company from which they buy the bond. Bonds are a commitment from a company to pay the price an investor paid for the bond at the time it was purchased, called the face value, along with the interest payments at a given rate. A listing of all investments that a person holds is called a financial portfolio. Most financial advisors recommend a portfolio with a mixture of low risk and high risk investments called a diversified portfolio. Like, there are some really interesting techniques. Again, I'm no financial advisor. You would definitely want to like do your own research. Like one of them, this guy was talking about like how to make money on a falling stock. He was like, more often than not, the stocks rebound. And so it's like, if he had an investment at one level and it falls, then he would just do another. It's either like match it at that new lower level, because as long as he keep like, the goal that he was trying to allude to was you trying to get in at the bottom, right? Once you get in the investment at the bottom, once it rebounds, then now you've basically just reset your low from wherever you were originally to the new low, and you make all your money back. But what that entails is you buy at the lowest possible part. Like you're constantly buying as it continues to drop, and then once you've identified the low mark, once it starts to rebound, because generally it does, you have to kind of dig and research and look at rates and the likelihood of it recovering. But once it recovers back past your original starting point and you sell, that portion of it, now you're all in the green and you haven't lost it. But that's a maneuver. Again, I'm no advisor or anything. You have to like dig and research, but it's really interesting. It is interesting. And it has potential, but again, it's a little bit weird too. But let's keep going. So reading stock tables. So daily newspapers and online services give current stock prices and other information about stocks. You have the 52-week high, refers to the highest price at which a company traded during the past 52 weeks. 52-week low refers to the lowest price at which a company traded during the past 52 weeks. A stock refers to the company's name. The SYM refers to the symbol the company uses for trading. Div refers to the dividends paid per share to stockholders last year. Percent yield stands for percent yield. Volume per hundreds stands for the sales volume in hundreds. Okay. Symbol, dividend, percent yield, and volume per hundred. Okay. Volume in hundreds. Okay. The lowest price for the past 52 weeks and the highest price for the past 52 weeks. Okay. High stands for the highest price at which a company's stock traded yesterday. Low stands for the lowest price at which a company's stock traded yesterday. Close stands for the price at which its shares traded when the stock exchange closed yesterday. Net change for the net change. And PE stands for the price to earning ratio. Yesterday's closing price per share over the annual earnings per share. So yesterday's closing price versus the annual earnings price. Okay. Price to earning. Okay. Price to earning ratio. Okay. Yesterday's closing price versus the annual earnings. Okay. I think we got a couple more examples. Oh, this one is kind of long. I might use my prepared notes just in the interest of time. Let's keep going. So use the stock table for Disney to answer the following questions. What were the high and low prices for the past 52 weeks? So that's the 52-week high and the 52-week low. So I think that's here. So the 52-week high, where's the 52-week low? I see the low, but that should be the low from yesterday. Oh, no, there's the high and low. Okay. So you had the 52-week high is the 42.38. The 52-week low is the 22.5, right? We got A right there. That's correct. Okay. For B, if you own 3,000 shares of Disney stock last year, what dividend did you receive? 3,000 shares. So the dividends, let me see, like your percent. So how many shares did they have altogether? Oh, the dividend. %. Is that 21 cents per share? So then is that 3,000 times 0.21? 3,000 times 0.21, $630. So with this setup, if we had 3,000 shares of Disney, they would have paid us $630, right? So basically that dividend, what you see here, is the amount that they paid per share, right? 21 cents per share, right? Okay, that's fine. What is the annual return for dividends alone? How does this compare to a bank account offering 3.5% interest? What is the annual return, percent yield, profits to earnings, dividend? The symbol, the stock, that's the high and the low, percent yield. Let me go back at my symbols again. Stands for the percent yield. Paid per share, so the volume in hundreds. Percent yield. Okay. Annual return, volumes, the high, the low, close, net change. Is it the 60%? I'm gonna look at that one for D. Oh, see. The heading percent yield is the percentage that gives the investors an annual return of their dividends. For Disney's 0.6% is much lower than a bank account paying 3.5%. Okay. So that one was 0.6%. Okay. Sorry. How many shares of Disney were traded yesterday? Okay. Shares, profit to earning, dividend symbols, volume. I think that's the volume. 115,900. Let's go with 115,900. Right here. In times 100, right? Those are hundreds. So then you got to tack on 2 zeros and you get 11 million shares. Yeah, I forgot about the hundreds. Okay. What were the high and low prices for the Disney shares yesterday? So the high price yesterday was $32.50. The low was $31.25. Pretty sure. I'm pretty confident in that one. Okay. For F, what was the percent at which Disney shares traded when the stock exchange closed yesterday? So the close was $32.50. Was at the high? That's interesting. So when it closed yesterday, it closed at $32.50. What does the ellipses in the net change column mean? No net change, right? There should be no net change. Under net change means that there was no change in the price of Disney stock from the close 2 days ago to yesterday's market close. Okay, that's fine. Compute Disney's annual earnings per share using the annual earnings per share is going to be yesterday's closing price per share over the profits to earning ratio. Yesterday's closing price, so the $32.50 divided by 43. $32.50 divided by 43 is 76 cents. So thus the annual earnings per share for Disney are 76 cents. The profit to earnings ratio tells us that yesterday's closing price is 43 times the earnings price per share. Okay. Oh, we still got a little bit more. Okay. So retirement savings, stashing cash and making taxes less taxing. You can use regular savings and investment accounts to save for retirement. There are also a variety of accounts designed specifically for retirement savings. A traditional investment retirement account, IRA, is a savings plan that allows you to set aside money for retirement up to $5,500 per year for people under 50 and $6,500 per year for people 50 or older. You do not pay taxes on the money you deposit into the IRA. You can start withdrawing from your IRA when you are 59 and a half years old. The withdrawals are taxed. I guess I'm pausing because I'm like, okay, I know that like with these savings accounts, the name of the game is like how to legally avoid the taxes, right? Because if you cash out on stuff like now, you're taxed on it or something like that. But then there's a way, like with the IRA, if it goes directly into that account, you're not taxed until you withdraw. It's something like that. I don't know how to articulate it all the way. I got to think about it a little bit. A Roth IRA is a type of what said it was individual retirement account. So a Roth IRA is a type of IRA with slightly different tax benefits, right? You pay taxes on the money you deposit into the IRA, okay? But then you can draw your earnings tax-free when you're 59, right? So the Roth IRA, you pay your taxes up front, right? So that way you're not trying to pay all these taxes on the back end, right? Like because if you with the other account, you're trying to pay taxes on the back end, versus if you pay them up front, then you're not dealing with taxes on the back end. The taxes have already been taken out. Although your contributions are not tax deductible, your earnings are never taxed, even after withdrawal. Although your contributions are not tax deductible. So it looks like with the Roth IRA, because you've already paid taxes on it, you can't use it on your taxes now. Employee-sponsored retirement plans include 401k and 403b plans are set up by the employer, who often make some contribution to the plan on your behalf. These plans are not offered by all employers and are used to attract high-quality employees. Okay. Oh, and that brings us to the end. All right, that was actually a pretty good time, right? So we only have about 6 minutes remaining. Are there any burning questions for me? On once, going twice. Forever hold your peace. Let me make a copy of this PDF available. Well, actually, I'll do that in just a moment. Okay. So no real announcements. So we did what section is? I think it's 3.5. And so the next class we'll just work on the next section, and that's about the rhythm that I anticipated. With this week, just one section per day was just about the right rhythm. If there aren't any burning questions, we're going to go ahead and end the session here. And from one beautiful mind to another, enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll meet again on Thursday, same time, same place for the next installment. Take care. Peace.